Most programmers earn more than the average person and still end up financially stuck. The tech layoffs of the last few years exposed something nobody wanted to say out loud. A high salary does not protect you if your habits are working against you. Number four on this list is something almost every developer does without realizing it's holding them back. And number two is the reason why some of the most skilled engineers in the world have almost nothing to show for a decade of work. Number one, writing great code means nothing if you don't understand how it makes money. Picture a developer who has spent 5 years mastering a backend framework. She can build anything. She's fast, clean, and reliable. But ask her how the product she builds actually generates revenue and she goes quiet. That gap is more expensive than most programmers realize. Technology alone does not create wealth. Business models do. Bill Gates didn't just write software. He understood that licensing it to hardware manufacturers worldwide was a model that could scale infinitely without hiring more people for every new sale. That insight was worth more than any line of code he ever wrote. Most programmers never ask the question who is paying for this and why. They treat business as someone else's problem, the job of the product manager or the CEO. But when layoffs hit, the engineers who survive are almost always the ones who understand the business well enough to be trusted with decisions, not just tasks. Learning the basics of how software products make money, subscription models, usage based pricing, customer acquisition, is not as hard as learning a new programming language. It just feels uncomfortable because it's unfamiliar. Start reading about the companies you build for. Ask why features get prioritized. Understand the difference between a product that solves a painful problem and one that's nice to have. That shift in perspective changes everything about how valuable you become. Number two, every hour you stop working, the income stops too. That's the trap. Here's a situation that's more common than people admit. A developer earns a solid salary, comfortable, respected, stable. But when she takes 3 months off for health reasons, the income disappears completely. Not reduced, gone. That's what it means to trade time for money. And it's not a judgment, it's just a structure. When your income is entirely attached to your presence, you're always one bad year away from starting over. The people who build lasting financial security in tech almost always do it by creating something that keeps working even when they're not. A small developer tool that charges a monthly subscription, a course based on a skill they already have, a library or API that businesses pay to use. These aren't overnight successes. They're usually slow, often frustrating, and built on the side before they become anything real. But the math is different. A product that earns even a modest amount per month without your direct involvement changes your relationship with money entirely. You're no longer selling hours. You're capturing value from something you built once. This doesn't mean everyone needs to quit their job and start a company. But relying on a single salary as your only financial plan in an industry where layoffs happen in waves is a risk that's easy to underestimate until it's too late. Even a small, scalable income stream changes the pressure you feel every day. Number three, more code written is not more value created. Top engineers know the difference. This one surprises most developers the first time they hear it. There's a metric that some teams still use to evaluate productivity, lines of code written. And it sounds logical until you think about it for 5 seconds. More code means more to maintain, more places for bugs to hide, and more complexity for the next person to untangle. The best engineers are often the ones who delete code, not add it. Think about a developer who spends 2 days writing a complex custom solution, 400 lines of code. Then a colleague solves the same problem in 12 lines using a built in tool that already existed. Who created more value? The answer is obvious, but the habit of measuring effort by volume is surprisingly hard to break. This matters financially because how you measure your own progress shapes what you optimize for. Developers who focus on lines of code chase the feeling of being busy. Developers who focus on problems solved, how fast did this load, how much did churn drop, how many support tickets disappeared, become the people companies genuinely cannot afford to lose. Business value is what gets you promoted, protects you in downturns, and makes you credible when you negotiate salary. Output that's easy to see but hard to measure accurately is one of the most underrated career traps in tech. Shift the question you ask yourself at the end of each day from how much did I build to what problem did I actually solve. Number four, mastering one stack for a decade feels safe until the market moves on without you. Imagine a developer who spent 15 years becoming the best person in his company at a particular technology. He knew it inside out. He was fast, trusted, and well paid. Then the company migrated to a cloud native stack. The skills he'd built his career on were suddenly worth a fraction of what they used to be. Finding a new role took almost a year. That story is more common than most people in tech want to admit. Technology changes constantly. Cloud infrastructure, AI tools, new programming paradigms, these don't just add to the list of options. They sometimes replace entire categories of work. A developer who stopped learning 5 years ago is carrying skills that slowly erode in value every single year. The danger isn't dramatic, it's quiet. It looks like confidence, stability, and expertise right up until it doesn't. The fix isn't panic learning every new trend the moment it appears. That's exhausting and mostly useless. The real skill is building a habit of deliberate, consistent learning, giving yourself maybe 5 or 6 hours a week to understand what's changing in your field and why. Follow the problems, not just the tools. If AI is automating a category of tasks, understand how that changes what companies actually need from engineers. Staying curious isn't just a personality trait. In tech, it's a financial strategy. Number five, you can build $1 billion system and walk away with almost nothing. This is the one that stings the most. A developer joins a startup early. She works incredibly hard for 3 years. She builds systems that become the core of the product. The company grows, gets acquired, and several people walk away wealthy. She gets a solid salary and a small bonus, but no meaningful equity. It happens all the time. And it's almost always because the conversation about ownership never happened clearly at the start. Ownership in tech comes in different forms: equity in a startup, stock options at a public company, owning a side product outright. Each one is different and each carries real risk, but the underlying principle is the same. Wealth in tech is rarely built by those who only execute, it's built by those who have a stake in the outcome. Bill Gates didn't just work at Microsoft, he owned a significant portion of it. That distinction between working for a company and having real ownership in one is often the single biggest financial difference between developers who build lasting wealth and those who restart from scratch every time they change jobs. Understanding equity vesting schedules, option strike prices, dilution takes time to learn. But not learning, it costs far more. When your next opportunity comes, ask the ownership question early. It's not awkward, it's smart. Out of everything on this list, the ownership habit might be the one with the highest financial cost because it's the one that's easiest to skip and hardest to recover from years later. Which of these five habits do you think is the most dangerous for developers right now? And have you ever personally felt stuck because of one of them? Tell me in the comments.